Hello and welcome to Opening Bars. The Six Wives of Henry VIII is the first true solo endeavor written, performed, and produced by the legendary Rick Wakeman. After signing as an independent artist with A&M, he was tasked with coming up with a concept for an album, and while on the Fragile tour with the rock group Yes, happened upon some books describing the lives of Henry VIII's wives, which aligned with some musical ideas he already had in mind. Recorded over a 9-month period in 1972, the pre-release album received a less than enthusiastic response from the record label executives, who reportedly were not anticipating an instrumental album. They reluctantly pressed a scant 12,500 initial copies, and doubly disappointingly for Rick, the album also initially received widely mixed reviews from critics. In the decades since, the album has become regarded as a landmark recording, achieving critical acclaim and worldwide sales estimated to be over 15 million copies. Let's take a closer look. We'll transcribe these opening bars using the treble and bass clefs, no sharps or flats, and a time signature of 4/4. The opening improvisational flourish is a solo monophonic line with no accompaniment. There are 2 phrases here, each starting and ending on an A. The first half contains much of the A minor 7 chord, then moves to the E minor 5 with an added minor 6th. The beginning of the next passage feels a bit like C major. I think that's because it's the only time an F actually appears in this sequence. Then it offers bits of melodic fragment previously heard, before introducing a raised G sharp leading into a presentation of a scalar motif alternating with an A treble pedal. Let's look at the rhythm. Notating this passage is tricky, for as everyone knows, this is fast and technical. The addition of the text freely is most often used to describe being unbounded by a strict tempo. Even still, I have chosen to represent the musical moments that are more deliberate in execution with standard note sizes and durations, and those that are more liberally strewn about as smaller cued notes. This latter style of notation is most often used for cadenzas. Here I would enter somewhat gradually and then pull up as I reach the embellished melodic cadential point, and as such, my performance of these opening bars on a piano would sound like this. Now that you know the notes, you can concentrate on advancing specific piano techniques. One skill you can work on while practicing is to attain dexterity and fluidity of finger movement. This section here, which is the main thematic material for this movement, is a good example. Try this slowly, noticing while doing so how the primary anchoring finger, in this case the thumb, remains stationary while other fingers alternately execute in succession. Notice how each finger feels different. Your index finger is so close to your thumb that you may unintentionally introduce unnecessary hand movement. But also, your middle finger tends to be longer than the others, and your pinky is the shortest and must reach the farthest. So be aware of how much curvature you have on your hand and fingers. While all of this is happening, your wrist and palm should remain quietly supportive, and especially with the light touch required of the non-weighted plastic keys on synthesizers, you should be accurate and clean as you build tempo. Notice in this piece that the motif is extended sometimes to the octave. Here I would swap in my third and fourth fingers to gradually expand and contract my hand, as it will provide more stability and accuracy. As I'm playing this, I'm strongly reminded of a famous piece of organ music by Johann Sebastian Bach, the great Toccata and Fugue in D minor. I'll patch in an organ sound now to simulate both performances for comparison purposes. Actually, I need a moment of pause here, as I contemplate how Rick could not find an organ sound he was satisfied with on his collection of 1970s electronic instruments, and that's why he ended up at St. Giles Cripplegate in London, England, to record this on a real pipe organ. Yet, here I am, able to select from a dozen different organ patches at the click of a mouse. My, how times have changed. Anyway, let's continue. Here, for instance, the first ornament is so distinctive, you can't help but hear the similarity in both pieces. The main thematic material Rick uses throughout his piece also bears a striking resemblance to a section in the toccata. Now, this may be a bit of a stretch, but see how Wakeman uses a 4-5 to minor 1 movement in a very rhythmic 1-2-1 rest pattern. And Bach uses the same rhythmic pattern, but uses the moment to cycle through a harmonic sequence to get back to D. And finally, The ending too is really interesting. See how both Rick and Johann bring their compositions to a moment of pre-resolution and then launch back into either thematic material or other blazing riffs. But Bach actually makes this move 3 times. The first time arriving at a surprisingly deceptive B-flat major chord. And then he does it again, pausing at a full diminished chord, and then ending up on a C major in first inversion of all things, the flat 7 of the main key. Wow, what a trip. Unbelievably, he only needs less than 12 bars to get back to D minor. Let me play that for you now. Let me be clear, I do not for an instant think that Rick Wakeman has copied JS Bach. But what I may be really saying here is, if you wish to emulate the new masters, you might also study the old masters. I hope you enjoyed your lesson today. Remember, don't just play notes. Make music. Until next time, thanks for listening.